that's the difficult bit. That waiting for new life, that waiting for change, that waiting for grace to arrive in the picture. And we've no idea how long that's going to last because we don't control it. You know, sometimes it can be immediate, sometimes it can take days or weeks, you know. But for me, that's what one element of faith is that knowing that if you stay there, if you have faith in Holy Saturday, that sooner or later that Easter Sunday will come. And that life will change and rise again.
And now part 2 of our conversation with John Keane from the Biospiritual Institute. So tell me, I mean, we know Gendlin's got a form of focusing. There are many sort of modalities. Can you just tell me a little bit briefly of biospiritual focusing?
Yeah, I guess, and again, some of this is my personal journey and doesn't represent the Institute, but I'll try and summarize it as best I can. I guess certainly biospirituality is not in the space of therapeutics or psychological health or anything else like that. We don't see biospirituality as a form of treatment for people that may need it, and that's not to take away from the wonderful work that focusing does in those areas. It's just we are in a different space from that. But that gives us a freedom in another way, in that we prioritize our relationship with the body. And it's that softening of the body over time that I think is at the heart of biospirituality, where we can be very insular and very hold on to things tightly and trying to protect those things that are most vulnerable within us. But as we begin to loosen that, as our body begins to soften, that body that Gendlin describes so well in the focusing book, that part of the gigantic system, it's like the tentacles of an octopus spreading out, and we could sense that connection with this larger reality, whether you call that God or whatever you like. And Father Ed used to always say that he didn't care if you believed in Jesus Christ, in Krishna, in Buddha, or the great blue duck in the sky. He said, once you sense yourself as being part of something larger than just you, then biospirituality is for you. What Ed and Pete have done with biospirituality is to translate it back into their own faith tradition. But it's open for other people to be able to translate that into their faith traditions and see how that fits as well. So within that context of softening the body, when that begins to happen, then those felt shifts, then those transformations, then that experience of physical grace is a secondary benefit. It doesn't mean that psychological, spiritual transformation, physical transformation doesn't happen, but it's never the original goal of trying to create the environment for that shift to happen. The relationship is more primary, and I guess within that context, they were able to prevent people being stuck in their head and addressing the 6 steps that Gendlin had. They said all that we really need is to notice and nurture. So notice what's happening in your body. So stop the head thinking for a while. Stop the usual narrative. Stop the usual analysis. So notice what's happening in your body. Allow the felt sense to form and be with the felt sense and nurture that. So it's just to notice, to be with it, and to nurture it. So it's in that flow, you're never thinking, where am I? It's always that all the time happening. And they began to realize as well that the caring, feeling presence was always an important part of the focusing attitude, of being able to they said we have this within our tradition. It's agape. It's God's love. Can we bring a sense of agape, of God's love, into our own body as we experience those things that we might otherwise hold away? Those things that we see as vulnerable, those things that we have made as other. And within that, still, they realize that it's more than a concept. This needs to be a physically felt uh, experience. Like holding a little puppy, that's scared, or holding an infant child. You can allow your love, your care for that to be felt physically through your body without the need for words or rational explanation. So for me, in that was that really altered the way that I interacted with my own body. Mm-hmm. And for me, one of the biggest stumbling blocks in that was, am I truly lovable? Am I deserving of that? And people will approach these things in their own ways, but that was part of my story that I needed to sit with and be gentle with, and allow to open up, to allow its story to be told. For other people, they've never had that experience of being held. Some people have had very difficult upbringings, very difficult childhoods, where they were never held by a mother or a father, or held or praised, or But even in that, the lack of that, the body feels. So what would it have felt like if, when you were small, somebody had held you, and the body knows what was missing as well as what's there, and you can allow that to permeate into somebody's being, even if they never had it before. And I guess the last dimension of what Ed and Pete brought to it was that notion of process skipping. It's there within Jenlen's writing. It's there in a lot of focusing. But Ed and Pete really put a huge emphasis on it. They said that this is one of the biggest stumbling blocks to living the body life of spirit. That it's actually within those things that we have made other, those things that we have hidden away in the corners, those things that we skip by and don't even notice them anymore. That some of the greatest transformations, some of the greatest graces and gifts in our life lie hidden within that. And again, I have certainly experienced that myself and witnessed it so many times in other people, that it's in being able to gently, lovingly embrace that cross that we have inside, that huge transformation, that huge teaching begins to emerge in our lives. And often, so often, the things that we need are hidden there beneath that process skipping structure. So I guess that within all of that, Ed and Pete sensed that there was a possibility of having the body, as experienced in this way, had the possibility to become the foundation for a global spirituality. That we all experience the world in and through our bodies. And if we begin from that experience of connection, of grace, of gift in our life, of love, then the interpretations that we have, then the doctrines that we have, don't need to be primary and don't need to separate us. We can appreciate them because people can relate them to their own living, to their own culture, to their own sense of the world. But if the living, loving human body is primary, then an awful lot of the angst, a lot of the violence that we have in the world may be undermined in some way. So that's the short version of the sort of space that biospirituality holds.
I'm just taking it in, and there is a gentleness and openness to it, like all focusing practice, really. And people come to this as with an approach of discovery, and to as you were speaking, that just the term "know thyself" was coming into my mind, of that whole idea where when we enter into process in this way, that it's as you come to know yourself or the hidden parts of yourself, you realize those are the parts that God has hidden in you, in a sense, where that, if we want to use a word, like, I don't want to put the words out there, but it's that universal self. And our human experience will always be human. It's one of the great gifts that we've been given, this ability to live in a human way, but also there is a soul in this body that's being carried through this life, and there is that to tend to as well. And it's, for me, even when we go inside in this way into our hearts, that there's a soulfulness to it. There's something to do with our essence and the part of us that's beyond this existence.
Mm-hmm. And I think you're hitting on something that's essential or elemental in this, that we need our own brokenness in order to be human. And when we can interact with our own brokenness, then we can have compassion for other people. Then the other person's brokenness doesn't need to threaten me. Then I can connect with them. Then I can allow them to be broken too. And I can actually celebrate that brokenness, in that it's not a dirty word to be broken, because it's what it is to be human, and in my experience, that brokenness is what gives permission for other people to be broken. Sister Mairead, Lord rest her, shared her brokenness with me, and it gave me permission. I remember a gentleman who had experienced an awful trauma told me that I can do nothing for him because I haven't been to hell. And we sat and we spoke and we shared, and he was able to share what he needed to share. That there is at the heart of it this reality that we need to be broken in order to be whole, and that wholeness leads to holiness. That balance between mind and body, that balance between brokenness and healing. And one of the members of the board, Father David Robinson, shared with me recently, and it has been with me since. And I'm not sure where he got it from, or if it's from him. But he said, that which has the power to break our hearts has the possibility of saving another's soul.
Yeah.
And for me, there's a truth and a living in that statement that is still reverberating inside. There's a living there that there's a knowing that there's a huge truth in that. That there's a wonder in it.
Yeah.
And we can't be real. That real presence that we give to others, we can't be that unless we brought it to ourselves first.
Yeah, it's like that brokenness is our doorway to grace.
Yeah.
And that that unless you come up to that door, the whole sense of focusing is the idea of being with that for oneself or present when another is with that. And doesn't it go right to the very fundamental teaching of two gathered in my name, right? Like there's a holiness that of course there's solo focusing and there's moments where we can, but there's a holiness to that coming together in that way that opens doors, that and also that somehow I don't want to use either, here we're back to words, but doesn't repair things, but it allows you to see it in a way that gives a new understanding, that it's no longer the same. And this is the physical part of the felt sense, where it's a physical thing. It's a knot that gets released in your neck, or it's the untwisting of your stomach, or the shoulders that drop, or the jaw that loosens, or whatever place in your body that's holding on so hard to this, clinging to really that thing. And then when you come to that gate, you can say, I'm here now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm here for you. I'm present to this. And, you know, it's that little bit of oil on the gate that just has it slide open a little bit easier, you know? And sometimes it requires many, many visits. It's not a, I'll get there and I'll walk through and this is one of Anne's beautiful sayings, or it's a focusing saying in general, of slowing down is the fastest way there. So sometimes you don't see the door right away, or it's emerging, and it's the very nature of how what is required from us is the coming to it, the presence. So
what you're saying, David, reminds me of that, in a sense that the paschal mystery is not something, a historical detail, that we're called to remember, but an essential part of human development, of the process of living. That within us, within living, there is a Good Friday. There's a way of living that needs to end, that needs to stop, or that is not continuing in the same way as it was before. But then there's the Holy Saturday, and that's the difficult bit. That waiting for new life, that waiting for change, that waiting for grace to arrive in the picture. And we've no idea how long that's going to last, because we don't control it. Sometimes it can be immediate, sometimes it can take days or weeks, but for me, that's what one element of faith is that knowing that if you stay there, if you have faith in Holy Saturday, that sooner or later that Easter Sunday will come, and that life will change and rise again. So, and that is as true now as it was 2,000 years ago.
It's ever present.
Yes. And for me, there's a reassurance when we're stuck in that Holy Saturday, because it's not a nice place to be. And we need to be gentle with that. That waiting for, that gentle waiting for new life to emerge, for that edge to appear in some way.
It's the transformational place. It's the doorway, not the door itself, not the threshold, and not the other side, but that.
Yeah. And we're not. It's like trying to get into a nightclub. We're not the guys in charge of the door.
Yes, that's very true. That's very true. Wow. Well, I mean, I guess, this has been such a rich conversation, and just connecting on so many beautiful levels, on a body level especially. But I guess I just, how does this evolve now? Where does biospiritual focusing see itself right now, and how is it emerging?
I think, as I said, when Father Ed passed away in 2013, the board reconstituted itself in 2015 because Father Peter was starting to suffer ill health as well. So through stellar work from the board, and Joe Coletti developed a wonderful website with all of the resources from Ed and Pete's articles and pamphlets, and there's a whole library there that's wonderful, and just giving descriptions of what the biospiritual process is. It's a wonderful doorway through there. We've been very lucky in that there have always down through the years, as you know, across the US and Canada, many retreat centres have closed down for differing reasons. But we've maintained a presence in Genesis Spiritual Life Centre in Massachusetts that still teaches biospirituality courses. There's the Center for Spiritual Development in Orange in Los Angeles. Father David Robinson and Sister Jean teach biospiritual focusing there. We've been very lucky in the last few years. St. Benedict's, a beautiful retreat center in Schuler, Nebraska there. The wonderful head there, Father Thomas, and two wonderful ladies, Debbie Sheehan and Jane King, are doing Trojan work there to bring biospirituality both to that centre and a lot of its surrounding areas. And we've just in the process now setting up an Irish retreat centre.
Wow.
There's a wonderful retreat centre in the north of Ireland that we're working on establishing. So we're training up a team there to begin sharing there too. So all of that is on the way. We have developed new training programs. Of course, with COVID, a lot of work has gone online. We do introductions online. We do book study courses, a 12-week book study course using Father Ed and Father Pete's manual called Rediscovering the Lost Body Connection Within Christian Spirituality. And that gives people a wonderful foundation in the process and the theory of biospiritual focusing, and it really will give people. They'll certainly know if it's for them after the 12 weeks. We then run companioning programs over 6 months as well. Again, to give people the competencies that they need to be able to guide somebody through this process safely and gently, and that includes just meeting up once a month for a few hours, and then the companions meet each other on a weekly basis, and then cross over each month, and they're mentored all of the way through that process too. And then the final stage then is we have facilitator training that enables people to teach this process themselves. So Ed and Pete's dream was always that this should be, what they wanted to create was grassroots communities where people could come and share this process with each other.
Yeah.
You know, and for me, one of the things that I'm most passionate about is sharing this with children. You know, because it's I teach it here in Dublin. The faith formation is still done in our schools here in Ireland, and as part of their communion and confirmation formation, it is just wonderful. The children just get this so naturally,
so beautiful,
vividly. But it's amazing for communion at 7 or 8 years of age. They just soak it up. They know it. It's already there. At the age of 12 or 13, when they get to confirmation age, it's much more difficult because culture, education, social media has all layered over all of this, and it's more difficult to break through. And Father Ed was always very passionate about this too. He says, what difference it would make to children if they discovered a loving relationship with themselves at a young age and were able to tie that experience into their experience of God in their lives. What a wonderful thing that would do, and what a change it would make for our culture. You know, that the children, it doesn't mean that they're not going to run into problems, that they won't face difficulties in their life, but at least they will have a resource. At least they won't be completely outward oriented and focused, that they have a resource right in the center of their being that they can rely on, that they can check into. That's a trustworthy companion as they grow and develop. You know, so the more of that we can do, and we're hoping to do that in the retreat centre here in Ireland, and we were on the way of doing it in the States as well, but the certain pandemic got in the way of some of that. But please God, we'll be able to roll that out.
Jean often said, "Carrying forward." There's only one
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
whatever wave comes, we ride that wave and wait for the next one.
Yeah, and my own daughter, she's 10 now, has taught me so much in this. I'll leave you just with a little story
Sure.
of the my father-in-law had passed away, and my wife was away from home working that evening, and it was the first time since her father had passed away. And I put Mary Kate to bed, and she was about 4 or 5 at the time. Put her to bed, and she said her prayers, and I came downstairs, and the next thing I heard this sobbing. So I went upstairs and I said, "Are you okay?" And she said, I'm just sad because I miss Pampa." She used to call her granddad Pampa. She said, "I miss Pampa, and I'm afraid I'll go to heaven too, and I'll never come back, and the world will go on forever." Okay. And I said, "Okay." I said, "And where do you feel that?" And the only time that I ever do focusing with Mary Kate is if there's something that needs attention. There's no structure, there's no nothing. It's just an ordinary human tool that we use. And she said, "Here in my tummy." And I said, "Would it be okay if Daddy held that with you too?" And I put my hand on her tummy, and it was like rock. She was rigid in the bed. And I said, "Can we just be gentle with that?" And she said, "Ah, yeah." And I said, "Just hold it, just like you do your teddy bear." And I said, "How does that feel now?" And she said, "Much more peaceful." And I could feel her body literally melt underneath my hand. And before 10 seconds, she was asleep in the bed. Okay. And there she was, this transformation from absolutely being terrified to peaceful. And she woke up the next morning and she came down to me and she said, "Daddy," she says, "it's not just that I'm sad because Pampa went to heaven." She says, "It's also that I don't like being sad." And there's a 5-year-old with an emotional intelligence that we wouldn't discover in most people. And a lady that I do some work with, she works in faith formation with children in outside Sacramento. She insists the children already have everything that they need.
Absolutely.
We just need to point them in the way to find it, to allow them to get out of their own way, and that child is in all of us.
Yes. What a beautiful sentiment for us to close our time together today. Just that child that's in all of us. John Keane, thank you so much for your time today.
David, it's been an absolute pleasure. It feels like we've only started.
Yes,
so
I feel that.
It's been a joy. So thank you for your time, and thank you for your expertise in putting this together. I really appreciate it. And I'll talk to you soon, please, God. Okay.
Thank you. God bless.
Go gently, Dave.
Check out our website at thefocusingway.com and look for The Focusing Way on Apple Podcasts and Spotify.